There's no authentic Arthurian tale. It's myth based on legend, based on surmise, based on myth, based on legend, and it feeds back on itself. And in fact, the main writing was medieval, 600 or 700 years after any Arthurian events, if they were to be real, would have happened. Most people put the Arthurian tale in the so-called Dark Ages of Great Britain, between 400 and 600 AD. There was an enormous amount of material, and it became apparent to me anyway, that really the story was up for grabs. We were as entitled as any of the storytellers to pick out what we found interesting. The overall design concept for Arthur is the notion of unification, of chaos, shall we say, and then the breakdown of that unity again. Lighting-wise, one of the elements that Francois was keen to use again was one we'd recently used in the Fontaine project, and that was projection. As a lighting designer, I control that absolutely. So my blank canvas is black, and I start from there. And I like to tell a story so that like a character, you work out who you are, and you work out a progress, and you work out what you're building towards and where you're going to, so that the lighting has a through line, if you like, has a high point and has a resolution.
When I'm designing costumes for a new ballet, it's quite a lengthy process which can start quite early on, months before we actually start producing the costumes, sometimes even a year or so before. So I like to really immerse myself in the period and style of the era that the production is set in. I have a lot of discussions with the other creative team, so the choreographer of course, the lighting designer, the set designer, as we all work quite closely together because we want a unified look to the production. We don't want it to look like it's all a little bit of this and a little bit of that. It needs to look like really one concept and all of the different elements coming together to make a whole. After all of the research and our discussions, I would start to sketch my ideas out. I'll then show those designs to the choreographer, and he or she will say, yes, I love that, or I'm not quite sure whether that style will work with the choreography I have in mind, because a lot of the times I have to design before the choreography actually is finalised. So I only have an idea in mind of what it might be like. Once we've discussed the design and how it's going to be constructed, Louise will make a pattern, and then she'll get one of the sewers to make up a toile, which is like a mock-up of the real costume. This is so that we can work out any fitting issues and also any issues there might be in the choreography and in being able to, the dancer being able to move in the costume. And we work out lengths and fit, etc. with that before we start to cut out in the real fabric, like silks and velvets and etc., brocades. So that helps us to work out what we need to do to make sure that it's going to be perfect. In the costumes, I've contrasted the early Saxon and early Romano-Briton costumes with the court of Arthur as being quite sort of refined and regal and rich. And then of course we go to beautiful, light, ethereal looking dresses for the priestesses from Avalon.
The story is so rich that when you do a ballet on something like that, you really have to choose, where am I going to go? It's impossible to take into account all the different angle to it. It's difficult to know which is the real Arthur. Dance-wise, I've been taking a little bit the point of view of The Mist of Avalon, which was a very nice book, actually. where we deal more with the conflict of religion, because we must realize when Christianity came to that part of the world, there was already a religion, the religion of the Druid. There was an adoration of the earth, adoration of the moon, of the Mother Earth, and so pagan, really, customs, which of course clashed with the Christian religion. Arthur does convert to Christianity, but to be accepted as a king, he has to be accepted by all, by the people of Avalon, of the ancient religion, as well as a new religion. So that's another element in it. I can express many passion with dancing, but there are some things I just cannot say and explain with gestures. So that is the advantage of having some kind of narration through the story. And musically, I've chosen pieces which are all written about the same period, and that's between the late 1800 to the early 1900. So we have Gynastera, which is the most contemporary, very good music, and we start in a more contemporary feel in a way, and then as the ballet progresses and we go to the courtly area, we become more civilized, and for this I use the impressionistic music of partly Debussy, but mostly Fauré. The unification of the land is relatively simple to express physically as you start with those battles, which are very often do in slow motion, so it's not going to be a realistic battle like you will see in a film. Everything is much more choreographed.